نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, and welcome to our daily fiqh hour of our unusual time of 5 p.m, which it will be inshallah for the remaining days of Ramadan. As we discussed yesterday, there's not going to be a theme because after Asr here in the masjid we have our sort of contemporary conversation, contemporary discussion, and therefore please do tune in to Masjid Umar's YouTube, and I think it ends up on our YouTube as well. Later on in the day as well, so you have access to that inshallah. So but it's not live. So what we'll do is we'll start by taking some outstanding questions that I slipped my mind yesterday. So we'll do them first. The first question, sister asks, Assalamu alaikum, is tahajjud prayed before or after witr? I was taught that witr is to be prayed at the end, but if one makes the intention to pray tahajjud and doesn't wake up, should they pray witr before in case? Wa alaikum salam. So it is literally exactly what you have said. There's no, the answer is in your question, mashallah, that yes, witr is the odd prayer of the night. Maghrib is the odd prayer of the day. So we pray 3 rakats Maghrib at the end of the day, and we pray 3 rakats witr at the end of the night. We always stop on an odd number. However, that's only obviously if a person is quite confident that they're going to get up before the Fajr start time. What they don't want to do is make the Salah qadha. So therefore, that's why it's encouraged by ulama that we pray before we go to sleep. And if by chance we do get up, then we can still pray our tahajjud, because obviously we didn't know that we were going to make it. So that's that one. And one last, and the other one which came in here. Let me just grab that. So I had another question too. How long do you have to have savings to include it in your zakat calculation? Some people say it's savings you've had for a year, but others say it's your current savings. What if my savings change throughout the year? Like, for example, March 2023, I had 5K, and then each month I added 1K. So technically in March 2024, if I don't take anything out, I'll have 18K in total, but only 5K would have been in my account for 1 year. So do I only pay zakat on 5K or 18K? If it's just 5K I'm paying zakat on, then it gets complicated, because when do I pay zakat on the other money? That would mean I'd be paying zakat every month or every couple of months. So this is a confusion which comes about with regards to the whole, which is the passing of the year. That is set by the nisab. Now there's different types of nisab. Nisab, there's gold, silver, which is now pound coins and anything which is money, currency. Nisab is also in camels. Nisab is in sheep. Nisab is in goats. Okay, nisab is in crops. So depending on what people would do, either they were merchants, businessmen, or they were farmers. So therefore, it would not benefit anybody to move his wealth from farm, animals into crop, or move it from crop into gold, silver, in order to avoid zakat. So zakat was pretty much standard across all different types of wealth in order to make it fair. And in order not to that one person is oppressed if they had silver, not so much gold. Obviously, we see a huge disparity now between silver and gold. The reason being is obviously silver has depreciated, nosedived big time. So, £300 or something like that will now make you a person of sahib nisab, whereas gold is up to sort of 4,500, 5,000, which is sort of similar to the other things like camels and sheep and things like that. I did a paper on this because the argument I was making was mainly a paper directed to ulama, which is that should we be using gold as a nisab rather than using silver as a nisab? Because realistically speaking, when the time of Qurb Udhiyah comes, then if you have silver nisab, then Qurbani becomes wajib upon you. But nowadays, animals in the UK cost about 240, 250 pounds. I don't know how much they cost down here, but up north they're about 240, 250. Now, if you've got 350, your nisab gets triggered. Now 250 of that, you're getting an animal. So now you're going below nisab. So now you can actually receive zakat. So it cannot be so sensitive, what is considered as ghani and what is considered as faqir. Anyway, side discussion. Let's get back to the main topic. So when it comes to a person triggering their nisab, so let's just say a person is a child, 13 years old, na baligh, so therefore there's no zakat due. But obviously nowadays we know, mashallah, young people are quite wealthy. Parents are either contributing towards some of their long-term funds, a child trust fund, or a child can get even when they're born. And therefore, even though they're not 18 yet, it is worth something. Soon as they reach bulugh, that's when they assess from a financial perspective whether zakat is due upon them. If obviously they have above nisab, which is what, 350, 340, whatever it is at the moment, then they make a note of that day. Literally the date they become baligh, they make a note of that day. And they're making the Hijri date note. Once a year passes, then whatever is in that type of wealth, they will give 2.5% of zakat. So let's just say, as the sister was explaining, that she had 5,000 when the nisab was triggered. Obviously, we don't know when the nisab was triggered for her. She's just given us a value. But let's just say a person was 13 years old. When they became baligh, let's say 13 years and 9 months and 7 days, they checked their bank account and they had 5 grand. So do they give zakat immediately? No. Why? Because a year hasn't passed on that 5 grand. So they'll just make a note of it. Now, every year, every month, mashallah, a father's a generous man. He just puts £1,000 in an account every month and says, save this up. This is going to be for your uni. This is going to be for your deposit for the house. This is going to be whatever. I'm going to put £1,000 in. So when she reaches this same time next year, according to not the Gregorian calendar, but the Hijri calendar, so if we say the 16th of Dhul Qa'dah, then when the 16th of Dhul Qa'dah comes again the year after, she will take an assessment of her wealth, irrespective of how each component of that has been in account, but the nisab has been there. And she will then calculate, so in this case, 18,000 or whatever she said, and give 2.5% of that. If, on the other hand, she suddenly becomes a farmer halfway through and buys camels, then she doesn't add the camels separate to that. That nisab starts itself. So it's each type of wealth has its own nisab. But when it comes to the time of calculation, she joins those different types of wealth up in order to give that. So that's the nisab question. So inshallah, I think that's done. Open to the floor, gentlemen. Ji.
I was going to say, alhamdulillah, things that's happening in Palestine, a lot more people are looking towards Islam and becoming Muslim. And I've also got a close friend that has said they're interested in becoming Muslim. I just wanted to know, is there like a guideline or a time frame? So when a person takes the Shahada, then this is how much time they've got before they need to start praying. Like how does it work for readers?
Yeah, so there's been this concept by some ulama, a small group of ulama, which is referred to as tadrij, which is that, we be applying the Meccan model, especially for Muslims as minorities, especially for converts. And the Meccan model is that not everything became compulsory immediately, where basically it was sort of drip fed, which meant that people's iman was being established, and also the fact that sort of bad habits were being removed. People could be used to drinking alcohol. They could have been drinking alcohol for 35, 40 years. It's part of their culture. British culture, drinking is part and parcel of it. Could be that they're very like eating a lot of ham and stuff like that. So to just suddenly drop everything immediately, it can be challenging. However, that's a very minority position. The majority position is such that once the deen was complete, then as soon as a person takes a shahada, all legalities are applied to that person. So it's like, for example, as soon as I decide I'm going to come to the UK, and as soon as I land in the UK, then all the laws of the UK apply to me. If I decide to go to, Pakistan, as soon as I land, all the laws of Pakistan apply to me. So I cannot say, well, give me a chance, guys. Let me slowly break into Pakistan. Let me stay here 6 years, whatever. It's not, you've gone through a red light, whatever it is. Obviously, it doesn't matter about going through red lights in Pakistan, but you've done this, so this is going to happen, or you've done this, whatever. So that applies. So therefore, prior to this person giving his shahada, then obviously this person, there's actually a video on here which talks about the process of dawah. So initially, obviously, you're trying to establish the person's worldview on accepting Islam. Now, already this person's got an inclination, but really that person needs to be fully aware and fleshed out what it means. Because is this an emotional reaction to what they're seeing? And they're thinking, it's really sad, and this is actually sympathy and pity. And therefore, this is an empathetic type of a position they're adopting, rather than a real decision that I believe Allah exists. I believe there's a God that created us. I believe there's heaven. I believe there's hell. So that conversation needs to be had first. Whilst obviously that conversation is being had and you're building this person's iman up, that's the key part. Once they accept iman, then they will naturally accept everything that comes with it. Why? Because once you've accepted that there's a creator, once you've accepted that there's a God, once you've accepted that there's a heaven and hell and hereafter, whatever, then you accept the rules themselves. So then the rules should come near the end. And then obviously, but there are people already aware, obviously, they know Muslims don't drink alcohol, they don't eat pork. They already know things like that. They know they pray regularly. So then those instructions would come in. But yes, everything would apply to the person as soon as they convert to Islam.
So then, if they haven't like had to pray yet, and then they become Muslim, like say one day, and then they learn like 3 months later, they have to do qada now for all those.
Well, even the prayer, they should start to pray. So wudu, obviously, it's a pretty straightforward exercise. It's not that complicated. Literally just washing your face, rinsing your mouth out, cleaning your nose, and wipe it. So they'll be able to make wudu. They know how to stand. They know how to go into ruku. They'll know how to prostrate. So the only thing is that they won't know what to recite. So then all they're doing is, they can just say Alhamdulillah. Okay, so they can do that. They can do tasbih. They can do istighfars. They can say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It's very short. So you're meeting the objectives of the prayer itself, and you're trying to cover that. Then obviously for the sake of completion, they can come back. Obviously Surah Fatiha we know is necessary. There's certain acts which are necessary in Salah, which if you omit, then obviously it's problematic in order to make those up. But it really depends how long that person is going to take to learn. Really, you're hoping that it doesn't add too much responsibility, because what you don't want is if this person is going to take a long time to learn, somebody might be in their sort of late 50s, 60s, and obviously learning is not that easy, and then going to struggle to memorize those things. Then each case will be looked at. But generally speaking, obviously the Salah should be as complete as possible, and the fasting and everything that comes with it. Your lister, at least if we mix it up, it doesn't become a kind of like a two-way conversation. Then it just moves around a little bit more easier.
So the first question, leading up from yesterday, you said about the mazur,
G.
15 minutes.
G.
Within that 15 minutes, if he puts leather socks on or cuffs on, is he protected for 24 hours as well? Or do you move on the cuffs?
If he makes so basically this person is ma'zur,
Yeah.
and in the state of ma'zur, they make the wudu. Yeah. Okay. So the thing is, when a person is in a state of ma'zur, then the 15-minute rule doesn't apply, in the sense that, so let's just say a person has a constant nosebleeds. Okay, maybe that's not. He's got a problem with his bladder, and he is constantly dripping urine. Okay, constantly dripping urine. It doesn't stop. He puts a tissue there. His tissue is always wet. You can feel the sensation. He knows that he's dropping urine. So this person is saying, how can I make wudu? Right? I'm always in a state of najasa. How am I going to make wudu? So obviously then once we have this 50-minute window, and that's been assessed that every duration of Salah, this brother doesn't have a 15-minute window, to remove that tissue, to remove the garment, make wudu, come pray Salah. He doesn't have that gap. So now we give the hukum of ma'zur. So the hukum of ma'zur is separate from him now, because now his wudu won't break, even though his urine is dripping. His wudu won't break. Now, technically, in normal circumstances, if urine drips, your wudu breaks. But for this person, it's lifted from that person. So that person's wudu won't break. Somebody comes and punches him in the nose and he gets a nosebleed, his wudu will break because of that, but not because of that. And therefore, he can apply khufs and there's no issue with that whatsoever.
You answered it.
There you go. See that? That's the connection, Masha. As soon as I saw him, he didn't put his hand up, I better give him his answer quick. G. Anyone else?
If you're praying Sunnah before the Fard and the Imam starts the Jama'at, do you finish Sunnah Salah, or do you?
You should finish it until a rak'ah is done, meaning do the 2 slots.
Okay.
Yeah, so do as a group. Don't sort of abandon it after 1. Don't abandon it after 3. Perform the 2. Get to the tashahhud, finish the tashahhud, and finish it off.
So basically, if you're doing Zohar Salah,
yeah,
for Sunnah before Zohar,
G.
and Imam started Zohar Salah, so instead of praying 4,
just pray the 2. That's right. Obviously, it's we need to be alert. If we come into the masjid, it's 55 is usually if it's 1 o'clock, but if it's 1:30, then we'll use 1:25 as a time. That if you get in after 1:25, it's probably not a good idea to squeeze your sunnats in, because you're looking at doing them a minute ago, which is pretty quick. So leave it and then pray after your fard, rather than risking it and saying, I'm going to push this, I should be all right, and whatever, and then it becomes a problem. So then it's better to wait for the Jama'ah. So one is just about timing, but if for whatever reason you think that I can do this, plenty of time, and then for whatever reason you start praying a long surah or something like that, and you slow down, and then you started doing catch up, then you'd complete a unit. You have to complete. You do not abandon a prayer, just sort of isolated rak'ah.
You don't need to research a sahwa or anything.
No, nothing. I'll just do the 2 and leave it at that.
A question about travel and praying short-term salah. So
when does the ruling of starting to shorten your salat start? From the point you move, from the point you leave home, or the point you leave the boundary of your town or city?
So the first thing is that you have to have niyyah as a musafir.
Yeah.
This is the key part.
Yeah.
Many people don't take that into consideration. You have to have niyyah as a musafir. So once you've made your niyyah as a musafir, then different rules apply to you because now you're a traveler. Then you have to reach the outskirts of your city. Okay, so when you reach the outskirts of your city and you have the niyyah as a musafir, and say salat time comes in and you want to pray it, then you would pray short. You pray your qasr, 2 rakats. If even if you're literally, like for Bradford folk, we say M606, which is usually the road you hit on when you just get out of Bradford. Then as soon as you get to M606, which is on the outskirts of Bradford, and you're heading down to London, and for whatever reason you're deciding to pray your Asr Salah now, then you would pray 2 rakats. Because you've made niyyah as a musafir. Obviously the hukm of safar applies to you because you're traveling more than 55 miles and you're now outside of your city, and therefore you would pray.
So would the 55 miles, isn't it? Would it be the 55 miles between boundary to boundary, or from home destination to destination?
Destination to destination.
So not boundary to boundary.
No, destination to destination, because what you're doing is that's your safar. Your safar technically starts from your home, but only because you are in your home city, then you are not 100% a musafir because you're still within your home city. It's when you go out of that, then the actual physicality of your safar has been found.
Yeah.
So that's the realization of your journey has only come about when you kind of get on the outskirts, so to speak. Even I don't feel like when I'm driving out of Bradford that I'm a musafir until I see the M606 signs and I think, right, okay, here we go. 3.5 hours of fun. It is difficult for London, but I think the position is that London is considered as a city, a single city. I know there was some discussion amongst the ulama in London about, I don't know if you've maybe come across it, read it, about whether each borough should be considered as a separate city, and all that. But then you see there were some huge cities in the time of the Prophet, in the time of the, when the mazahibs were being put together, Damascus, in Sham there was, in other Basra, Kufa, huge cities, but they would only consider it when they reach the outskirts of it. So even though that London is massive, it was the same with Manchester and things like that.
Question about time.
Gee.
How did the Sahabas know it was, example, 4:36 today's day? How did they know exactly?
They didn't know. The only thing is we sometimes make a little bit of a rod for our own back. Okay, they didn't know. Everything was done by sighting. Everything was done by visual. There was no substitute for that. The only sort of substitute was like having a stick in the ground in order, but that was only when the sun was available. When the sun was no longer available, then you cannot even use a stick in the ground. So the sun was the main means of determining time. The sun's movements were determining the time. So when the light appeared, the true dawn appeared. So the false dawn is a light appears in the middle, and then it goes upwards vertically, and it's sometimes called like a wolf's tail, and it starts to get slightly white, and then it disappears. It goes black again, and then you see light appear, and then it spreads across the horizon. Once the spreading starts, okay, that's considered as true dawn. So that's the appearance of light. Okay, then obviously when it comes to sunrise, that's a bit obvious because you see the sun rising, so we know when sun rises. Again, it's not by time. Obviously, one man's sunrise is another man's not sunrise, because it's depending on your eyesight, my eyesight, how we're seeing things. Then obviously when it comes to zawal, it's easy relatively when you're near the equator, because the sun doesn't travel on an arc, it travels literally over you, so it's quite easy to see. With earth folk in the northern latitude, it's a lot more challenging, especially in winter. So again, that was by sight. And then obviously Asr was determined by the shadow forming. So again, a stick in the ground. And Zawal was also with a stick in the ground, because Zawal would be literally when the sun is above you, there'd be no shadow at all forming. And you would wait for a little shadow, because Zawal means to move. So once a little shadow appeared, you think, that's it, now I can pray. When there was no shadow for the stick, you can't pray. And then Asr was a stick. Obviously, we have different opinions amongst the ulama. Some say one shadow length, some say 2 shadow lengths. And then obviously for Maghrib time, it was the sun setting. And once the sun set, it was obviously. Then Isha time, obviously, again, there's no sun now. So now you're looking at Shafaq Abya, then Shafaq Ahmar. You're looking at the remnants, because obviously as the sun is set, I know the sun doesn't set in the sense of the word, because it's the earth that's rotating. The sun is pretty much where it is. So when the sun sets, obviously, it starts to leave light in the western sky. So, it'll be orangish, reddish, whitish, and then we get astronomical twilight, where it's black as it's going to be. So, within the absence of that, what do we do? Okay, in the absence of that, what do we do? So, ulama have, even this is going back to centuries ago, have used astronomical determinations to associate with these physical observations. And that's where we get our 18 degrees, 15 degrees, and all the rest of it. And, Maghrib, do we take into consideration refraction? Because when you're looking across the atmosphere, remember, you'll still see the sun, even though it's actually set. The reason being is because it's being curved, light curves with refraction. Easy example is if you take a glass of water and put a spoon in it, you'll see the spoon breaks. So it'll be in the water here, and outside of the water it's there, because the medium is the light travels at different speeds. So therefore, with refraction, you're going to still see the sun, even though it's set. So therefore, we cannot go by sunset times, because we can still see the sun. We would have still seen it. So we have to add, I think, sort of 7-8 minutes we add in total, because even the HMNAO add about 0.6 degrees for refraction, but it's not sufficient. So we add an extra 4 for refraction purposes. And that's the reason why we have Maghrib time doesn't tie in exactly with sunset times. So therefore, we have to use that. But now that we have these figures, now it becomes ilm. That if you know that this is, when we use the word know, is your knowledge of it, your understanding is that I shouldn't eat after 4:36. That's your understanding. Whether it's technically right or not is irrelevant now. That's your understanding, and you're choosing to eat after that. Hence the reason why then the ulama will say that, you've broken your fast, brother, because you ate after 4:36, and this was the timetable that you had, and this is what you're going. So we now have our own structure for determining right from wrong, times and everything like that. But these wouldn't have been the times. Even the Jamaat time, there was no Jamaat time is 7 p.m. The Sahaba would just gather, and when there was sufficient number of Sahaba, the Prophet would lead them. And that was it. So it wasn't as though, we'll see you here at this time, I'll see you here at that time. And again, it was just by looking at the stars, looking at the sky, sun's movements, and determining that. But obviously that was replaced as soon as the timing systems and all the rest of it came in.
I did want to that. So how for us there's different timings in London. So I live in Edmonton, but my family follows the Muslim Ummah's timetable. When, for example, we go to a Muslim country and they've got the early Asr, then we just follow that because we're in that country? Or
if obviously you're praying in Jama'ah,
yeah,
and there is no alternative, then there's gunjaish to do so. The reason why we have to be careful that we don't flip-flop is because once you've accepted that you are going by the position that the shadow length has to be twice as long before your Asr time starts, you can't suddenly then say, oh, and it can also be one shadow. You can't do that, because now that's either Dhuhr time or that's either Asr time. Yeah. So if it's Dhuhr time, so you're using it sometimes to play your Dhuhr because you're late. Okay, you forgot to pray your Dhuhr at work. So in the summer, you're using it for your Dhuhr time. And then maybe in the winter, when it suits you, you're using it Asr time. So you can't flip-flop. So you have to have a position. Once you have a position, then you have to adopt that. Now, obviously, when we go to the Haramain, we struggle because obviously they have their own fixed times. Now, who's not going to pray Salah in Jama'ah in the Haramain? It'd be Be'ukuf. Even the women are given some level of green light to pray there. So therefore, that's just a situation that you just have to accept and do. And it's not, you just work around that.
So the point about what's the position in the Hanafi school about combining Salah?
It's quite strict as a Hanafi school, because our usul tells us that the Salah is a fixed time. In the Quran, the Quranic ayat says that the Salah is a fixed time. And if it's a fixed time, then we cannot use akhbarul wahid, yani khabl wahid, which is of a less hermeneutical strength, scripture, against a verse of the Quran, which is mutawatir. So a verse of the Quran is mutawatir, mass transmitted. Khabl wahid is not mass transmitted. So khabl wahid can't condition, can't caveat a verse of the Quran. And the verse of the Quran is quite clear that so each Salah has its own time. So then how do we understand these ahadith in which it seems on the face of it that prayers are being combined? So we say there is a way in which you can act both on the verse of the Quran and on these hadith, which is that you pray Dhuhr at its end time and pray Asr at its beginning time. Now it looks like you're joining the two prayers, but they're praying both in their own time. Pray Maghrib in its end time, pray Isha in its beginning time. Therefore, you're praying each in its own time and you're doing Jama together. Now, obviously, it's a bit of a workaround. We know that as Hanafis, and the hadiths seem to be quite clear that you can do so. However, because our legal philosophy is in such a way, we have to adhere to that. We cannot start changing our legal theory. All we can do is act upon that. So now you start seeing some places people take a little bit more relaxed approach. I think in London, you folk are a little bit more, relaxed than us up north. Those up north are very mutashaddid, mashallah. You can, I hear people, ulama also do Jama Bain Salatain, Hanafi ulama, and they do this and they do that, and they do that. We don't. We may even, take you out of the fold of Hanafism if we heard somebody doing something like that. It's quite a serious offense. So, but there is, joking aside, there is a hadith there. There's no doubt about that. It's not about the fact that, they just made something up. Of course, they haven't made something up. The ulama of the past were great scholars. However, our legal theory, our legal school adopts this method. We are mere mortals. We're just mere followers. Can we even consider ourselves to be Hanafi? Only the elite ulama can consider to themselves to be Hanafi because they know the school. For 99% of people, I could sit here and say to you, this is Hanafi. I could say, this is Shafi. You're going to just say, right, Mufti, I'm saying it. So, I'm saying, let's go with it. Who's going to debate with him? So, the Imam Ibn Abidin used to say, most people are called army. They're just log, general masses. So they have to find a scholar, a contemporary scholar that they respect, that they think, alhamdulillah, my heart is inclined to this particular individual. I understand the way they speak. I feel that they, and then listen to that person and tie their camel to him and follow that caravan. It is up to the ulama, the senior ulama, to know what the Hanafi school is, to know where there is a position that they may need to adopt from a Shafi school, to know that there may be a position that they need to adopt from the Maliki school, and how to do that. But for the general people, who got other day jobs, basically, they're either doctors, teachers, they got other day jobs. So for them, they just find a contemporary scholar and say, right, I'm tying my camel to this guy. I believe he's rightly guided. I believe he speaks sense, and my heart is inclined towards it. Because you're can't make an intellectual decision because you don't understand the madhab. So how can you make an intellectual decision? You just have to say, my heart is inclined towards him. You just got to pray to Allah that Allah guide me to the righteous people.
In the Shafi'i school, is combining only allowed in emergency?
Yeah, travel. In most places, it's mainly travel, extreme weather, which would cause a difficulty, fear of an enemy. It's always in extreme circumstances. It's not just at the.
We work in a school, and during the winter time, those that I will play Dhuhr in school. She said, "Oh no, I just wait till after and I play Dhuhr in us." So
yes. You see, sometimes they will take it in a sort of a more relaxed tone, because this is what happens. And when you don't understand the underruling premises for a position, then you start taking this kind of flexible approach. When really there's got to be a real reason. Work, is that a real reason or whatever it is? Of course not, because anyone could take 5-10 minutes out. Nobody at work is going to stop you from using the bathroom. So if in the same way that's a necessity, then as believers, worshipping Allah is a necessity. It's as much as breathing air, it's as much as eating food, as much as having to use a lavatory. So in the same way, that has to be respected. It's just that if we devalue it, then obviously, whoever we work for will also devalue it.
When we pray, say on the motorway, service station or whatever, work, whatever, and we haven't got a compass to exactly measure Qibla, and we pray as best as we can by our understanding of working out which is Qibla, and then later on we found out that we were a bit, not correctly. What's the sort of remedy for that, or is there no remedy? So
there's no remedy required.
Yeah.
We always have, as I said, we have a hierarchical structure of sources. So the first thing is we always use yaqini. So we have to use yaqeen. In the absence of yaqeen, you're going to use ghalib al-dhan, which is what you're using there. So you're using, they always say, look at the aerials, look at the sky dishes. They always point towards that. So, you've done that. You may have looked at the sky. You may have asked somebody around, And then you've gathered all that information. Obviously, you've got an idea roughly which way southeast is. You're driving down from the north down to the south. So you think, okay, this way is south, that way is north. Now it's just the east-west thing you've got to work out. Once you've worked that out, you think, okay, I think it's in that direction. You've done as much as you can do. That's all you're held accountable for. Once it's done, that salah is done now. That's you pack that up, it's done. Khalas. Even if someone afterwards tells you, I heard you dropped off, you stopped over at such and such service station. Yeah, I did. Did you pray salah? Yeah, I did. Okay, we parked up and I prayed alongside my car. Okay, where did you park? I parked here. It's the other direction. Chalo, it's done now. That's it. It's different if you're praying and somebody comes in, like you say, you're at somebody's house and you want to pray your salah and you say, I just need to pray. So they say, you just pray upstairs. So you say, okay, which direction? They say, towards the wardrobe. So when you go upstairs, like 2 wardrobes, so you think, okay, you want very specific, brother. So you think, chalo, I think this looks more of a wardrobe than that one does, so I'll pray towards there. So he comes upstairs, just watch Anak, and he says, no, I meant that one. Now you would turn in your salah. Okay, because he's informed you.
Well, if you finish your salah, then you repeat it.
Yeah, you'd repeat it in that circumstances because you're still there, aren't you? The time is still there. This is about after the event where the time has gone. Then he would say, no, I meant this one. That's why it's always best to get that clarity beforehand to make sure that everything is done. And and nowadays even apps, phones have compasses on them now anyway, or Qibla direction, so it makes life a lot easier. So we've done mashallah allotted 30 minutes, but bismillah, no.
Just a quick one. When you're on, like for example, on a plane and you have to pray salah sitting down, do you have to repeat that salah afterwards? Yeah,
there's a big discussion about salah on a plane, and there's different positions people have adopted. One position is exactly how you described it. They will say, still pray on the plane.
Yeah.
Why? Because there is narrations that we understand, like, for example, if you don't have water, that you should imitate a praying person. Okay? So even though you don't have water and there's no soil for tayammum and you can't go into state of wudu, should you just not pray and then wait, get water and then pray afterwards? Some ulama will say, no, simulate a praying person. But it's obviously not prayer. Why? Because you don't have wudu. So the same argument they will make is that you simulate praying salah on the plane. Obviously, the problem you have is you're supposed to do qiyam, which is fard. You're supposed to ruku, which is fard. You're supposed to do sajda, which is fard. But you're not doing any of those. Now, nafal you can pray seated, but fard you can't do that. But you cannot start, kicking people out or whatever and, praying near doors or praying in the gully ways or whatever. You can't do that. So therefore, the ulama will say, some will say, not all say, that simulate it and then you have to repeat it when you land. Others will say, well, because it's not a prayer anyway, don't pray, and when you land, you pray as qaza, like you would do if you didn't have water or if you were in a state of janabat or something like that. So it's up to each person if they feel more comfortable that it's salah time. The thing with on a plane, because it's very difficult to determine time, it's not as serious because it's not like, it's been 4 hours, I'm prayed. It's been 5 hours. You don't know what day it is, whether it's night or day or fajr or zuhr or whatever. So it's not as an impact. But as I said, I've heard ulama will say just simulate it. So at least you're praying. You're answering the call, because if that's the time Allah wants you to pray, you're answering His call. The only thing is you're answering His call to the best of your ability, but you realize it's not good enough, and you'll make up for it. But you're not ignoring His call. That's the key point there. No, it's okay. It's okay. Bismillah.
Growing up, as a child, I was always shoved at the back of the masjid.
And has that serious issues? Okay, we'll sit up and talk about that privately, maybe.
But today in Britain or London or wherever we are, it's different now.
It is, yeah.
Can you educate us on how we can?
As in, what is better?
Yeah, what is better?
Yeah. So there is no doubt, okay, that the first saf should be the people of ilm. Okay, there is no doubt. So we would know that the senior Sahaba would take that first saf, and then after them. And that's why the greatest amongst you becomes the imam, because this is not about egos, but this is about the acceptance of your salah. So you want the best of you to be the imam. Why? Because if his salah is accepted, like I told you about tying your camel, you've tied your camel to him. So that's the whole reason you're praying behind him, is because you think he's the man. So therefore you put the pious man there. Secondly, there's also the mas'ala about if, say, something happens to him and he has to step away. Now, if you don't know the mas'ala, that you have to step up, whatever, and you sort of like panicking, and then this is going to be chaos. So it's important that it's not just the buzurgs that are here, but those people who have ilm of what to do to deputize him in a case where he has to step away. So that's how it should be. And then obviously the next people, the children were at the end. Okay, and then it was a women folk. So that was the tertib, that was the order, and that is the correct way to do it. The changes we've seen happening is this more, and I think this has happened more so in the last sort of 15, 20 years, where it's happened a lot with women, and it's also happening a lot with children, where I won't say we're sort of bending the rules, but maybe we are bending the rules. We're sort of taking a more sympathetic, let's use that phrase, we're taking a more sympathetic view on the fiqh, and we're kind of parking up a little bit in order to say that we don't want to put people off, right? We don't want to put people off. And therefore you'll see that there's a, big change now with women, with regards to the masjid, with regards to, staying over the night in a masjid, with regards to doing a nafal itikaf even in the masjid. And you start to see posters flying around. I've already seen a few from masajids that are, and it's always this argument, we don't want to put people off. You'll also see people, certain ulama that are referred to as sort of fluffy ulama, speaking nice fluffy bayans, which are particularly addressed to women about, oh sister, I know you don't wear the headscarf, but you're trying your best, and the tone is changing. Okay, the tone is changing, where it's more kind of placid and I'm sure some of the certain speakers that I'm referring to, and you're getting kind of mixed gatherings now, and there's a little bit more kind of kumbaya type of clappy type of Islam. You're seeing that happening, and the reason for all of that is less judgmental, less fiqhy, less rule based, and let's be more, that's another way to describe it. Let's keep people on board. That's the main thing. It doesn't matter if you have to give up some of your principles. It doesn't matter. Let's keep people on board. I think we've swung too far. We have swung too far. So the position which would probably be now, especially with the masjids the way they are, is the first saf should be left with no children on it. But then if they join the second saf, then there shouldn't be an issue. And again, preferably, I would say is that they should be on the edges of them. On the
end. That's the thing. The thing issue is like even a few about maybe a week or two ago, like Tarawih Imam Sab did an announcement that kids are messing about and parents should keep the kids.
That's right.
But keep them on the ends.
Keep them on the ends. Yeah. That's the thing.
The problem lies with us as well, is because we're coming late to masjid and the kids are mashallah eager.
That's what I was saying. But the thing is, it's not about the fact that this will put them off, because we have to understand, you see, in society there's hierarchy. We have to understand that. So, you can come an hour before your boss, but you ain't parking in your boss's car park space. Try it. Yeah, you'll be picking up your P40, whatever it is, in the morning. So we have to understand there's a hierarchy. The director's got his car parking space, the chairman's got his car parking space. You can come, and if you just got to fight with the other minions trying to get a space in the main car park, that's life. And the sooner we educate, youngsters about it, that you just cannot achieve things, just like that. You got to work to it. It takes a lot of time. It teaches endeavor, patience, whatever. So as I said, I don't agree with it, that the fact that we've swung completely the other way, this more palatable, sweet Islam or whatever. If you look in the Quran, there's as much stick as there is carrot, right? No doubt, as much stick as there is carrot, but we've completely moved the stick out of the equation now, and it's all carrot. Gajra halwa as well, not just carrot, but we've turned into a halwa as well. We've sweetened it as well, just to make sure that people. So there's a danger for that, because we might have some understanding. It's like how shirk slowly came into society. Originally, shirk sort of came into society was to remember the pious person that died. It wasn't to set up gods in combat with Allah. It was to sort of remember this pious person. But they said, look, at least if we had a picture, we'd be able to say, oh, that's what you look like. We'd be able to connect better. So that seems like a fair, innocent thing to do. So they did that. Then obviously, as we move forward, we want something 3D. We don't just want a 2D picture. Why don't we make a statue of the God? Seems like a good idea. And slowly, before you know it, people just did it for barakah first. That, I'll pray near this person for barakah purposes. But each generation that's watching is going to take it that next bit. So the young children now that are growing, so like you're remembering that. You knew this hierarchy structure. I will remember that. But a child now that's 8, 9, 10 years old, they don't see that. Where do they take things in the next stage? So the fiqh has to remain. The fiqh cannot be parked up, because that's what keeps us upon deen. Even if it's maybe mentioned then, that we understand that this is the actual position. However, we're taking this for this reason or that reason. To not say at all, I think, is problematic.
Is that the reason why we don't have too many chairs like opened up in the masjid so it doesn't look like a church?
Well, it's becoming that, isn't it? Yeah, it's becoming like that, and people say, yeah, but people struggle. And I always get confused because, based on my age, I've known elderly people, back in the 70s. So surely people haven't got knee problems only in the 90s and the noughties and the 2010s and 2020s. Didn't they have knee problems in the 70s or something?
New thing with too many chairs.
Yeah, obviously, but it's again because it's become acceptable. It's become acceptable, and once something becomes acceptable, we are 600 years behind the Christian community. So they've got pews now, and you see that whenever they when they pray, they do drop on their knees. They have a little carpet, a little kind of thing where they drop on their knees, but then obviously sit back up again quickly because it's painful. But remember, we're 600 years behind. So 600 years from now, if we were to fast forward and we went into a masjid, what would that masjid look like? So like we're talking about now, that, children, women, would it be mixed gathering? Would a man be the imam? Would a woman be the imama? Would we have chairs? Would we have a mimbar? Remember, we have been pretty traditional up until the 90s. And especially after 9/11, we were pretty traditional. After that, there's been a lot of effort now to change that tradition. So you're going to see a lot of changes. Remember, many of the companions used to say that some of the things you do when they were referring to the tabi'in, which you don't, you just think is a small thing. We would think it was like from the mubiqat, those things that was the deadly sins. So that's like only a generational change. Imagine if a Sahaba came now in this area and they think, what is this? What religion do you people follow? We say, we follow your religion. So, that's why, as much as we want to be encompassing, we want to be all inclusive, we want to keep people on the ship, but we have to also maintain that the ship is still going in the right direction. No point having everybody on the ship and it's sailing in the wrong direction. So then you're better off at least saving those people that are actually getting on the ship, rather than sort of, getting everybody on the ship and going in a completely different direction. You going to say something? Or
I was going to say, if there was two kids on the Asr, I mean, as long as time they were at the front row, came early.
Yes.
So if you see them there, you wouldn't remove them.
No, you wouldn't remove them. That's really for the structure of the masjid to do that. It wouldn't be an average person's responsibility. You would just get that and pray. That's your job. It's how the masjid wants to run. If it has a decision, a policy that if a child gets there early, we will let the child be, then that's the masjid's policy. If the masjid's policy is, no, we're going to make an announcement to say, leave the first saf empty. Even if you get there early, what the children should be doing, you see, is that they shouldn't sit in the first saf. They should sit in the second saf, because then it gives that kind of thing like, I'm going to be there one day. You know what I mean? It gives them that kind of thing. If you go into any society, when youngsters come up from the academy into football teams, they don't get to sit next to Cristiano Ronaldo, and they're cleaning their boots. Okay, they don't get to sit next to Messi and all the rest of it. They're cleaning their boots, but they say, one day, I'll be there. I'll have the number 10 shirt, and it gives them something to live up to. So it gives them. So really, even if a child arrives, the Tahajjud time, you should sit in the second saf. It's only if the first saf is not full, and then he sees a gap, then he should step forward. We shouldn't take that seat in that first saf, because really the first saf should be left to. Then you got, mashallah, Buzurugs, ulama, behind, who are in second, third saf, whatever, and you got, children who are nabaligh, who may not even know about the ahkam of najasa, and we know the khair comes on the imam sahib, and then it goes to the people behind imam sahib, and it goes towards the right, goes towards the left, then it goes to that. What you don't want is a chain to break, because this kid didn't go to the toilet properly or something. That's it now. Everyone else is stuck. Everyone else is now, getting nothing in return because the chain broke. Because he wasn't even in the state of wudu. Allahu Alam. So that's why. And that's why people should be very keen to be, vying for that first spot. I was thinking earlier as well that what they should have, you see, is in masjids, is they should make all this other stuff tight. I was just honestly yesterday I was thinking that. Is they should make all the other stuffs tight, and they should make the front stuff very open. So, like we all want to be in business class, don't we? Nobody wants to go in economy because your knees are up to your chin. You watch, everybody will get there early to get in the first stuff. Why? Because there's more space. Nobody will be in the second, third stuff. So I don't know, it's an idea. Inshallah, take it forward. Shorten the gaps in the stuffs behind. Make the first stuff long. Haram. Extra kajur. People go there, inshallah. Anyway, we'll stop there because we're just short of 6, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.